I'm feeling it. I am feeling it.
So, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who scored only 4 Rouges all last season, Jack.
The Stampeders are over the hump and back on top. 2018 Grey Cup champions.
Yeah, man, I eat chalk for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Here's a 50 to the 40, down near the 20. He's gonna score! Touchdown! A chance to win! Will they get it? Yes, they will! Unbelievable! Holy goodness!
Whew! Muy caliente.
We are live with the 4th episode of the Red, White, and the Rouge podcast. As always, my name is John. You guys can find me on Twitter at JohnHewish_. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Rob, or on Twitter known as at RobMixSports. Guys, before we jump into the podcast today, we're going to be previewing week 3 of CFL DFS action. We have a full slate of games after the 3-week slate last week. If you guys haven't had the chance to do so yet, check out the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, or whatever your favorite, whichever your favorite listening platform is, and drop a review if you would be so kind. Also want to give another shout out to Ryan from Vicehood for sponsoring our $100 contest last week. Spoiler alert, I finished first because I was just as eligible to win as everybody else. But for all you guys who participated, really appreciate that. It was fun to kind of do a contest outside of DraftKings last week. Speaking of last week, let's run the review music.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. Mm-hmm.
All right, Rob, how was your week 2? How was your week 2? You didn't catch many of the games because you were over across the pond.
Yes, I was in jolly old England. I actually just got back like an hour ago, so I am exhausted, and I wasn't able to catch any of the games. However, I have watched all of the condensed games, so I'm an expert at this point. And with the blowouts last week, there wasn't a whole lot. I don't feel like I missed a whole lot.
You didn't. I mean, your boy Dominique Davis led the.
I called it.
You called it, but did you?
I didn't play him, but I did call it.
We'll put an asterisk next to that one. I'm not going to say I called it with Cody Fajardo, but I am going to stand by my take that he is the future in Saskatchewan. So I'll double down on that this week, but we'll get to that later. Interesting to see Ottawa at 2-0.
Very.
Are you
very interesting.
Surprised BC is 0-2?
Yeah, I'm surprised, but like watching them play, they just aren't playing well enough to win. They haven't established a running game, and therefore teams can just blitz Mike Riley, and he's getting absolutely destroyed. So when you are a very one-dimensional team, you're not going to win. And also, they can't stop the run, they can't run the ball, and they can't block because they know the defense knows they're throwing it every play anyway. So, I'm surprised because on paper they should be better, but watching them play, I'm not surprised. They don't deserve to be winning these games.
No, they don't. DFS wise, though, it was a really good week for me personally. If you guys played the Jewels lineup, I believe, even honestly, I think if you played it to a T, that was my main lineup that I played the most on. That scored 129.82, so that did all right. My best lineup, though, scored 166.76. I had Trevor Harris, so imagine, I don't remember if I had room for Mazzoli in that one, but man, I basically played Harris, Moses Madu, and then I just stacked the Tiger Cats. I had Brandon Banks, Braylon Addison. I plugged him in after we found out Luke Tasker was out, Sean Thomas Erlington, the Tiger Cats defense, and God help me, I played James Wilder Jr. for the sake of the game stack. And it almost paid off, but I was, what's it called? Using my 2020 Black Woman hindsight when I started to think about what if I just move Wilder down to Deron Carter, but I moved Trevor Harris to Mazzoli, and again, as is fitting with the theme music now that we have for this segment, hindsight is always 2020, especially in DFS. So
it's so true. I had a nice dose of that as well, because just before we recorded the podcast, we make our lineups right before the podcast, obviously. I had a Cat stack before we recorded, and then at the last minute, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to play BC. And of course, that was a nightmare. But I did end up making a few dollars off my secondary lineups. But unfortunately, if you played the McPicks last week, you did not do very well. But don't worry, I still did fine. So really, we all win.
Exactly. All right,
Yeah.
Speaking of winning, let's jump into the first game of the week this Thursday. It is Canada Day weekend, by the way, for all you Americans, so we'll be celebrating
right.
our independence on Monday. So fittingly...
Actually, we're not celebrating our independence. That's not what it is. It celebrates the Charlottetown Conference. Different.
Please stop. Drag the history major part of you into this. God.
Well, come on.
Okay, we'll be drinking a lot on Monday. There we go.
Yes.
But it's so fitting that the CFL has spread out the 4 games for the Canada Day weekend over 4 days. Like, I don't know why they don't at least have 2 on the Monday, to celebrate.
I would love that. Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind if they had 3 of the 4 on the Monday, to be frank. But, I mean, that's... I know.
Well, it just means I can't really invite you guys over on Monday. Because, I'm going to invite you over for 1 game.
Exactly.
If there was 2 games or so, I could, we could make it a day. I don't like that. I would have skipped the Sunday and done 2 on Monday.
For sure.
Yep.
So Thursday, though, is the first game of the week. Edmonton is at Winnipeg. Winnipeg are 4-point favorites. The total in this one, I have it at 59.5 here, but it's moved down all the way to 58. So Trevor Harris is a 4.5-point underdog, and we know that typically he is not very good as an underdog. Honestly, I expect Winnipeg to continue to have a decent pass rush. He has been exceptional in his first 2 starts in Edmonton, though. So, honestly, for me, he's like my number 3 quarterback this week. Like, there's 2 guys I like ahead of him, but with the way he's just been putting up points and, obviously running the ball in and able to throw it. So, I definitely don't hate him here, but I do hate Matt Nichols. Like, honestly, just as like a person, this isn't new. I wasn't going to talk about him at all, but like seeing him on the sideline last weekend, I was on the Winnipeg side, thankfully. So I was only 2 rows up from staring at this sad excuse for a quarterback. So I think Chris Streveler should be the starter in Winnipeg, and I'll stand by that take until Matt Nichols proves otherwise. But man, it's not even like I want to say it's a joke, but it's like I actually just truly feel like nothing but detest for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind him if let's say Streveler was the starting quarterback in Montreal, but because he's holding Streveler back for being a CFL starter, he is relatively annoying. But he's not a play for me this week. I do like your take on Harris though as the number 3 quarterback going into the week. I think the reason he's been so successful has been because Edmonton's run such a balanced game. Lot of running. As you know, CJ Gable is in the midst of it seems a career renaissance at this point. And they're running and passing pretty well equally. And you don't normally see that in the CFL. And like I mentioned last week, all the screen passes and the short throws for when Harris does get under pressure. So I got to give props to Harris, but I especially give props to to Moss, who is the coach of Edmonton, who has clearly set the entire offensive system off playing to Trevor Harris's strengths, and that's hard to do. It's hard to build a whole new offense around a new quarterback, and they've done just a stellar job. So, congrats, Jason Moss. Very good.
To play devil's advocate, though, that was basically how their offense was built before. I'm not saying he's done a bad job with it, but it's not like you're going from putting a guy like, your quarterback's a guy like Matt Nichols, a game manager, to Trevor Harris. You're going from Mike Riley, who is the focal point of your offense, to Trevor Harris. Again, I'm not saying he hasn't done a good job with it, but it's like...
I'm going to put a hole in that, though. You aren't seeing those long bombs. You don't see Edmonton relying on long bombs like you did last year.
That's true.
And that's the big difference, because Trevor Harris is not elusive enough in the pocket to wait for his receivers to get that far downfield. He needs to have quick options in case he gets in trouble. Can he make those long throws? Absolutely. But he really does need the time, or he makes bad throws and he throws picks. So I really love that instead of just sending both wideouts deep downfield, they're maybe throwing one downfield and then having one guy short. And that's what I think they've kind of switched around, and I love it. It's fun to watch too. It's really fun football.
I think my counterpoint to that would be it might be a while before we see a dual threat as dangerous as Duke Williams and Darrell Walker were.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
So
That's very fair. That's very fair. Anyway, running backs.
Andrew Harris. He's only averaged 15 points against the Eskimos in their last 3 meetings when he hasn't been injured. Touches will be there, but the pricing is tight this week. I mean, he has one of the safer floors on the slate. Is this an Andrew Harris fade scenario?
I think it is, and strangely enough, I'll go to CJ Gable as well. You also got to fade him, and here's why. Edmonton and Winnipeg have both only played BC, right? That's the only other team they've played.
Correct.
Correct.
No.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. That's incorrect?
No, Edmonton played. They played somebody else week 1, but I know what you mean. Yeah. That's
yes. Sorry.
They have a common opponent.
Either way, they've had a common opponent, and so their numbers against the run look amazing. But I don't know if they're actually that good because the Lions' running game is terrible. So they both have really done a great job shutting down the run, or so it seems, but they've both had a game against literally the worst run offense that I've seen since I've started watching football, maybe, with the BC Lions. So it'll be interesting to see this week if CJ Gable or Andrew Harris get stuffed, and we'll see which one of these teams is actually really effective against the run and which one has benefited from poor competition.
For what it's worth, in my opinion, Harris he hasn't had that success against the Eskimos in the past. That might change, and I'm not going to weigh that too heavily. But as for Gable, his price is too high, and the Bombers front 7 is legit. Like, it's not.
No, I fade both these guys anyway. Don't get me wrong. Okay. What John's saying is right. It'll be interesting to see which defense performs better against 2 solid running backs at this point.
Yeah, and especially in a game with such a high total too. I mean, man,
I'm thinking next week.
Yeah,
or the following weeks. This will be a real test for both defenses.
Yeah. All right, moving into wideouts now. I'm fine to go back to Ricky Collins Jr. Honestly, he only caught 1 pass last week, but he did have 7 targets in the slot. This game has such a high total. It's tough against it when you're not justifying paying up for these bigger guys. You don't want to fully fade it. Ellington is priced up quite a bit at $9,900. Tough to look at him. Do we look at Darvin? Darvin Adams is basically the only wide receiver we can seriously look at from Winnipeg, right?
As a high-end option, yes. I like if you're saying guys who have a 20-plus upside, I would say Darvin Adams is the only option. But I do like Wolodarski as well.
Oh God.
He played really well against the Lions, and I know the Lions haven't been fantastic against the pass, but I think Wolodarski probably is coming in for a really good season this year. I could be absolutely wrong about that. That could age horribly, but I think Wolodarski is a good price, and he's someone I would play this week.
Okay, so with pricing as tight as it is, we're going to be talking about some guys that you haven't heard us mention in the first 2 weeks because of the limited options, and one of them is Natai Ajay. He's only $3,700 for the Eskimos. He is an option. I would prefer him, honestly, if he was getting more kick returning opportunities. But man, if you really just want to punt a position this week without there being that many good kind of mid-priced options, he's definitely one of those guys you want to look at. I mean, he'll get you like 5 points, frankly. Maybe, his ceiling is probably like 12. But like, again, with
his name's fun to say.
It is fun to say. And,
yeah.
There's that. So, another reason to play him.
Yeah.
Defenses, I think the Bombers D, if they get to Harris, they could get to double-digit points here. 4,500. They're one of my favorite tournament defense options on the week.
Excellent tournament option. Yes.
Yeah, I would still put them kind of middle of the pack though. Like maybe I'd probably rank them as my number 4 defense, if I'm being honest.
I agree with that. Well said.
All right, Montreal at Hamilton. Hamilton are 14-point favorites as they look to continue taking the piss out on the basement of the East. The total in this one is 59.5. Jeremiah Mazzoli is 10,800. His price only went up just a little bit, but he's averaging 30 in his last 3 meetings with the Alouettes. He's the number one quarterback for me this week. Just expectation for points and everything. Strong correlation was with his receivers. And honestly, if Tasker sits, that's a boost for him because there's less mouths to feed in that offense. So you can more comfortably pair him with guys like, Brandon Banks, obviously, Braylon Addison, and so on. Vernon Adams Jr. Yes? No? Do you have any interest here? Is this your low price value quarterback of the week?
No, Hamilton's too good. They'll control the ball for so long that I don't see the Montreal offense actually getting on the field enough for him to put up significant numbers.
All right, jumping into running backs now. I got 3 guys here who I like. I know I'll let you talk about Sean Thomas Arlington because he's part of your brand now. But for me, William Stanback is a guy I'm going to go back to. These are like the only 2 guys in the Montreal offense I'm interested in, by the way. Like, he's the...
One.
Go ahead. No, I'll let you
2 guys?
2? Yeah, no. I mean, like I said, we're going to be talking about value guys this week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Stephon Logan. That's a name you haven't heard mentioned relevantly in a while. Again, he's one of those guys that's like 3,800. If he gets like 100 plus kick return yards and then maybe, gets some garbage time carry here or there, he'll get you to like 7 or 8 points, honestly. And at 3,800, 8 points is really about all you need, and then...
No, that's value.
Yeah. So... he's a guy I'm looking at, but again, I like some of the running backs this week. I think it'll be tough for me to really fit him in anywhere. Standback, though, is definitely one of my favorite value plays on the board for this week.
And to go back to Sean Thomas Arlington, I said in week 1 I think he was 4,100. This will be the cheapest you can get him all season. He is now 7,100 only 2 weeks later. He can receive passes. He can carry it out of the backfield, and one thing I've noticed the most about him is, as compared to last year, he's bigger. Like, he's much thicker, and I think he can take the punishment. Yeah, like, quite literally. I think he can take the punishment of hitting hard yards, which I don't think he was able to do last year, and that's the biggest step I've seen in his game. So I think this is going to be a big year for him. I've been really impressed thus far.
Agreed. Moving into wideouts, Brandon Banks, 9,600. Let's just run that back from last week. He had over 100 yards. He returned that missed field goal for a touchdown. He probably has, again, in this matchup, just such upside, such a safe floor. Love me going back to some Speedy Banks.
He's so fast.
He is fast. It's fun to
like
watch.
It's not fair. He's so fast. It's crazy.
Luke Tasker's only 8,100. He didn't play last week, and again, DraftKings seems to do this thing with players when they're ruled out late. They drop their price as if they haven't played, like as if they literally played and got a 0. Because I think he was like 8,900 last week, if I recall correctly. Yes. So he's only 8,100. If he plays, I love this spot for him. If not, we're going back to Braylon Addison at 7,600. So just keep an eye on the status of Luke Tasker heading into this weekend. DeVere Posey is the only Alouette receiver I'm going to look at here. He's still only 5,700, and he's just, again, the best receiver in this offense. Obviously, Montreal is going to be having to throw the ball a lot to just try and keep this game close. So if I'm looking at anybody from the Montreal receiving core, it's Posey, but otherwise there isn't a whole lot to love there.
I like his upside at 5,700 as a good amount. I do like that. In one of my secondary lineups I won't be giving you guys later. I have him, and I think he's going to do well.
As for the defense, obviously Hamilton's worth a look. They're 100 less than Calgary. I think they have a safer floor. I said lower. So they have a safer floor here because I think that. Calgary's the next game. I'll just talk about the Calgary defense now. With Calgary's defense, I definitely think they have a better ceiling with the amount of sacks they can pick up against Riley with their defensive special teams upside. But Mike Riley is a ticking time bomb to snap one of these days, and the Lions are going to, put up a big game. Montreal is not they're a ticking time bomb to be, well, I mean, the CFL already owns them, so at this point they're basically the WNBA of the CFL. So, anyway, my point with that is that Hamilton has the safer floor. Montreal is going to run up, 30 points on them, and obviously Vernon Adams Jr. will be good for a turnover or two. Any objections to that?
Nope,
That
none.
comparison, you like that?
Yeah, are you able to go through a few minutes without shitting on the WNBA? Just so I know.
It's
like
hard.
not that I like the WNBA, but okay, come on, they're trying. Anyway, BC at Calgary.
Calgary are 10.5-point favorites. This one is the lowest total on the board this week at 52.5. Any interest in either quarterback here?
Nope. Mike Riley has let me down too many
Twice
times. Yeah, twice now, and his O-line is not looking good. They can't run the ball. He's too risky. But like John said, he is a ticking time bomb. He could come up and have an absolutely ridiculous game, and no one would be all that surprised. But that's too risky for me. That gets into the real gambling aspect of this, and I'm not willing to make that bet.
Yeah. Bo Levi Mitchell, 9,800. The floor, the ceiling there is low. Again, the floor is decent. You're gonna get circa high teens, maybe 20 points from him, and likely not a whole lot more. Running backs, the only one worth mentioning here for me is Don Jackson. BC's already allowed 200-yard rushers 2 weeks in a row. Don Jackson's price is too low for the floor that he brings to the table. It's good correlation with the Calgary D. I love me some Don Jackson this week at 6,600. Love that.
I always love Don Jackson. I think as I've said many times, I think he's a really good running back. And if you're not at this point, if you're not playing running backs against the Lions defense, you're drunk. Go home.
Yeah, you're definitely.
I said that backwards.
You're
drunk. Go home.
I mean, you could say that to somebody.
Yeah, that's true. You'd be pretty drunk too then.
I guess I would.
Yeah.
No reason to mention anybody in the BC backfield, though, right? I don't even want to talk about that.
Absolutely none.
Okay, let's skip right over that then into the receivers. Eric Rogers at 7,500. I would have liked a bit more of a price drop considering how bad he was in week 1, but he did have 10 targets last week, so I'm expecting a bounce back here from him. His supporting cast is viable too. I mean, mainly Markeith Ambles is the name that comes to mind. Maybe some Reggie Bagleton. Probably not Jawan Brescison, but Rogers is the favorite for me from the Calgary receiving core. Anybody worth playing from BC in your opinion?
You wrote down Lamar Durant, and I think that really is the only real option here, just because at 5,600 he's a pretty good price. And him and Riley seem to have a sort of connection going right now. But overall, the Lions' offense is kind of in shambles, and I would wait a while until they figure this out to play anyone from BC who's at a high value or a high price.
Revenge for Durant as well. I love me a good revenge narrative.
Yeah.
But
I know you do.
Yeah,
that and the baby narrative.
Exactly. Baby narratives and revenge narratives are my favorites.
Yes.
Defense and special teams. I already talked about Calgary. I mean, I don't need to repeat it.
Yeah, we can keep going.
Yeah.
The Lions' defense isn't good right now. The Lions have a lot to sort out. So I just wouldn't play a whole lot for the Lions. I think their season, it's still very early. But as of now, they don't have it together. So maybe steer clear. Just fade the team, basically.
Yeah. All right, last game of the week on Monday. Toronto is at Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan are 11.5-point favorites, and the total in this one is 53.5. Cody Fajardo is the future in Saskatchewan. Change my mind.
I'm not going to change your mind because you were calling this even when it made no sense, and now he has one good game. So what? But I'll be playing Fajardo in a lineup for sure. But I don't know. I think that's more because the Argonauts' defense is going to be terrible than the fact that I have serious trust in Cody Fajardo.
The Argonauts' defense, or the Argonauts were thrashed by the Tiger Cats 64-14 last week. Now, granted, think at least 2 of those touchdowns were on special teams. So I think they only gave up 50 points, maybe 43, which is respectable if you're a JV team going up against a CFL team. Or maybe a varsity.
Exactly.
We'll say varsity, at least to give them some credit. But yeah, I love Fajardo at 8,400. He's my favorite value quarterback this week. He's definitely my number 2 quarterback. And again, with pricing as tight as it is, if you don't want to punt one of these low-price receivers or kick returners, then Cody Fajardo might be your quarterback. He's definitely my quarterback this week. So he's my number 2 guy based on his price. Argonauts going back to James Franklin, I believe. I mean, obviously this team is not going anywhere anytime soon, but it's not going to look good if they give him a leash that's that short, right? I mean,
I agree, and he obviously the Argonauts got destroyed in every aspect of the game. I didn't think it was his fault though. I didn't think Franklin was the reason why they lost that game. I don't think you can put that on him when you allow 60 plus points.
No.
Yeah.
You can't, and you mentioned it earlier. I mean, it's just time possession, right? It's just
exactly.
How long was he even on the field? So,
yeah.
Mentioning running backs now, William Powell, 8,200 here against Toronto. There's no reason not to love him. He has 2 touchdowns in 2 games so far for the Riders. He only had 15 touches though last week. I expect him to be closer to 20 this week if Marcus Thigpen isn't vulturing carries, of which he had 9 for 57 yards and a touchdown last week. I think they go back to kind of the ground and pound with Powell. I really like him at 8,200 here. I think he has a nice floor, and the upside is definitely there.
Yeah, floor is big there. That's playing William Powell is like playing Bo Levi Mitchell.
With more upside, yeah, I'd say more upside still, but you're right.
Maybe a bit.
Wideouts? Who's your favorite wideout from this Saskatchewan core to pair with Cody Fajardo?
I like Shaq Evans the most. If a gun to my head I had to pick one, it's Shaq Evans. I think Naaman Roosevelt is the one you don't want to take. And then Kieran Moore, I think you get a better value out of Shaq Evans, and that's why I would take him. I don't dislike Kieran Moore, but I do dislike Naaman Roosevelt at 6,200. I think that's too much.
All right. I'm kind of with you there. I really like Shaq Evans at 6,400. He's definitely my favorite guy to pair just with the targets he's been getting and whatnot. Oh, God. I don't even want to talk about these Toronto wideouts. I don't know why I mentioned them. I don't know.
I don't dislike Levi Noel. I hate it when Levi is spelled with 2 L's at the beginning of the name. It's so confusing. But, yeah, Levi Noel isn't too bad at 4,600. He had a pretty good year last year, and I believe he had 7 catches last week. So considering James Franklin was only on the field for about 5 minutes, getting 7 receptions from him is pretty impressive. And I do think Toronto will be better this week. I don't think you can get much worse. So yeah, if you as a low price guy, obviously not the lowest price, but if you're running like Cody Fajardo and you want to play Ellingson and Banks, you can fit Levi Noel in there, and I think that's a safe play.
Agreed. He's the only option worth looking at. And then obviously there's the Riders D facing an offense as anemic as this at 4,700.
Yeah, I like that. That being said, the Rough Riders D, oh my God. Coach Chris Jones was apparently the thing holding that together. The man is a genius. Held together by polo shirts.
Why does Twitter send me notifications like this? Leonardo DiCaprio's run-in with a volleyball is more evidence of the Mets curse. I don't know how far I want to get into this, and I don't know why this is coming up on my phone, but it's weird. It's so
I don't know
weird.
why it's coming up on our podcast, to be honest. But yeah, no, that's Twitter.
Twitter's a weird place to be right now.
Follow us on Twitter.
Shameless plug in the middle of the show. A nice segue there. Guys, if I have any other bets, I will be posting them on Twitter for you guys. I posted Tiger Cats minus, I think 4.5. I just went all in on them on Sunday last week. So, yeah, even though I will be betting, obviously, the lock of the week, sometimes I do have some more plays to throw out there for you guys. So be sure to just keep an eye out for those. All right, let's jump into week 3 edition of the Jules and the McPicks. Let's get started with the
McPicks.
All right. Like I said, this is a really complicated week this week with a lot of, as John said, a lot of really high price guys, and so you're gonna have to play a lot of value guys. So this is just one of my lineups. This one could be the worst of the three, but this is the one I'm playing. At quarterback, I have Mazzoli. At running back, I have Don Jackson. At my first wide receiver spot, I have Wolotarski, because I think that's a really good price of 5,300. I have Brendan Banks once again. I'm kind of shooting for the fences here with Ellingson at 99,000, which is
99,000.
Yeah, I said it funny, but yes.
Yeah.
And the Riders' defense, and the strangest play of the week, I have Christian Jones returning punts. And I know that sounds stupid because he's not even returning kicks anymore. However, that if you watched the Toronto special teams last week, holy crap, were they awful. So, I feel like there's some upside there, but really I'm just picking someone cheap so I can double dip with the very high-priced wide receivers, and I can play Mazzoli.
And if he runs one back for a touchdown, you get the points on the Riders' D and for him too.
I didn't even think of that.
I love that.
Well
That's my favorite type of double dip.
Yeah, that's a super double dip. Triple dip.
All right, let's get into the... On the jewels this week, I'm going with Cody Fajardo at quarterback. I'm standing by that take, even though it frankly didn't make sense when I first said it, but sometimes you say things and they just tend to age well. I'm going with Don Jackson as my running back at 6,600, Brendan Banks at 9,600, my first wide receiver spot, Eric Rogers at 7,500 at my second wide receiver spot, Sean Thomas Erlington at 7,100, and William Standback as my second flex at 59. And then I'm wrapping it all up with the Riders' defense and special teams. Man, I hate how much I like this lineup. I hate it.
It's a good lineup. This may be the first time in the history of the show you haven't played Andrew Harris when he's available,
or Mike Riley.
Mike Riley.
What is this? Is things? Weird things are happening.
Yeah.
But I think this could go really well this week. We'll see.
I think it's a good lineup. Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the first of our final two segments, which is the Price is Right. Coming on down for me this week, I'm going back to Don Jackson again. I mean, BC's run D has just been so bad. He's only 6,600. It's tough to find other guys in that price range who have a floor that's safe, especially when most of the other guys in that range you're kind of looking at are Saskatchewan receivers. And as much as I trust Cody Fajardo, that is a busy receiving corps. So 6,600, love that price for Don Jackson. Rob, who you got coming on down this week?
I'm just going to quickly say I'm just shocked that someone just said, as much as I trust Cody Fajardo after one game. But anyway, we'll see how it ages. I'm really interested to see how this goes. Once again, I don't even think Trey Mason is on the roster anymore in Saskatchewan, so I can't really talk. But anyway, for my Price is Right, I have Wolotarski. I kind of ruined it by mentioning several times that I think he's a very good price. But he was really, really good against the Lions in week one. And I think he's a good middle price wide receiver. If you look at the guys around him at that price range, you have guys like Mike Jones, who I believe has a total of 1.8 average points per game. So at that low 5,000 to 5,500 slot, he's probably the best receiver you can get.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's finish it up with the
Lock of the week.
Whew! I got a spicy lock for you this week, and I'm going to say the Lions team total, they go over 21. I'm going to bet on the Lions score over 21 points. There you go, minus 110 on that one. Player lock of the week for me, I'm going back to Brendan Banks. I mean, it's Hamilton Tiger Cats implied total is something like 35.5 this week, and that guy is so good in that offense. So 9,600, I think you pay for him above Andrew Harris and company. So yes. I'm likely going to have 100% Brandon Banks again.
Yeah, I believe I will too. It's reminding me a lot of Chris Williams a few years ago, where if you didn't play him, the upside was so ridiculous that you were gambling by not playing him.
Yep.
Yeah, and I really don't like that, and I'm kind of sour about it because I think it makes for really, really boring, chalky lineups throughout the contests. But it is what it is. Somehow the Ticats keep finding these tiny, fast guys. I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, it's a good lock. And Brandon Banks is an outstanding player, and he's amazingly fun to watch. Anyway, after praising John, my gambling lock of the week is actually, I think Edmonton's going to beat Winnipeg this week as a outright win. I know that Winnipeg's the favorite here. I don't see it. Edmonton's just been firing on all cylinders, and the Winnipeg defense is good. The Edmonton offense is better as of right now. And for the player lock of the week, I have Don Jackson because the Lions can't stop the run. I think if you're not playing Don Jackson, you're being foolish. It's like not playing the quarterback, playing the Montreal defense last year. The Lions can't stop the run at all. It's pathetic. They've lost their two best running backs, and they also can't cover the pass. The Lions are just a mess right now.
Apt analysis.
Yes, apt. Yes, excellent.
All right. Anything else you want to mention before we head out?
Yeah, make sure you follow our podcast Twitter. We've actually gained a lot of followers in the last week or so, so I'll be continuing to post on that. It was a little bit quiet this weekend because once again I was in England hanging out with the Queen and giving her my locks of the week. But she's a big CFL fan. But anyway, so that's please do that, and like John said, rate on iTunes, Google Play for all you Android bros or Google Pixel bros. And yeah, anything for you?
No, that's it. You covered it all. Best of luck this weekend, guys. As usual, you can reach out to us on Twitter up until and after lock if you have questions about picks, DFS-wise, gambling-wise, whatever you want. Our DMs are open for you guys, so be sure to reach out to us if you have questions. If not, best of luck this weekend. We hope to see you again next Tuesday. Take care and enjoy your Canada Day if you celebrate it.
Yes, have a good one.